Hello and welcome all friends and devotees of yoga, meditation and Buddhist studies. We are now in the concluding phase of this little project, sort of instructing my Dhammapada Sutras. The Dhammapada Sutra, for those who are watching my videos for the first time, is a collection of 423 short, succinct verses that gives you in a nutshell what we call the wisdom of the Buddha, because the wisdom of the Buddha is really infinite and his teachings are very vast and very broad. So this book, the Dhammapada Sutra, is of great value in Buddhism because it sort of gives a summary of the teachings of the Buddha. It gives you the teachings of the Buddha in a nutshell. It gives you a very succinct summary of the teachings of the Buddha. So I'm now going to read you my translations. Chapter 24. Chapter 24 is the craving. It's called craving. Craving or desires. All the alternative words for craving will be desires, hankering, and so on and so forth. Lust, even at a very high degree. All these words are very synonymous. Craving, yearning, wanting, hankering, lust. Even greed is also sort of connected to these words. So, but the title in my work is Craving. So here the Buddha is just trying to instruct people on this particular evil, if you want to use the word evil, or trouble, if you want to use the word trouble, or problem, I think may be the best word to use to describe craving here. Craving is what aggravates suffering for humankind. When you have too many wants, you want too much, you yearn too much, you crave too much wanting, and you only get a little bit of what you want, then that is very serious suffering. So if you've studied the Noble Truths, the Buddha said that suffering of humankind is actually caused by craving and ignorance. So this chapter is very important. It's one of the greatest chapters of the Dhammapada. The craving of one who dwells and acts rashly only increases like a creeping plant. This is verse 334. Like an ape searching everywhere in the jungle for edible fruit, he proceeds aimlessly from one existence to the next. And we are continuing 335. If a man is overwhelmed by this worthless, most contemptible, grasping craving, in this life, his woes only accumulate like grass plants sprouting in the wake of a heavy downpour. Verse 336. But when a man brings this worthless, contemptible hankering under control, a longing pretty difficult to subdue, his woes simply fall off like a water drop falling off a lotus plant. Verse 337, Dhammapada Sutra. My speech I present to you, I wish you all assembled here the best of luck. Extirpate all hankering as a man uproots an unwanted wild plant with a useful, pleasant-smelling root. You must strive hard and not allow Mara, the evil one, to ruin you repeatedly, like a brook ruining its hollow-stemmed plants. Verse 338. Just like a tree that has been downed will sprout afresh if it has a solid root that is unharmed. If hidden greed lingers, and is not extirpated, distress arises and continues, and there is repeated pain. We are now on verse 339 of the Dhammapada Sutra. We are now really in the concluding phase. If the 36 brooks of hankering after sweets and delights are very powerful in a person, obviously a multitude of roaming greedy thoughts ride the beguiled soul on. Verse 340. The brooks of greed and hankering run in every direction, and the creeping plant arises and settles automatically. And thus, When you observe the creeping plant arising, extirpate it completely with your wisdom. Verse 341. Humans remember and are aroused by delights, and those in bondage to the delightful and in pursuit of pleasure. There are the humans ensnared by being born again and again, growing old. I take it again. These are the humans ensnared by being born again and again, growing old. Humans remember and are aroused by delights, and those in bondage to the delightful and in pursuit of pleasure. These are the humans ensnared by being born again and again, growing old. Verse 342. Humans perturbed by craving flee back and forth like a trapped hare, and beings ensnared in the shackles of clinging, longing and lingering, come right back to pain and distress, and linger long and long, again and again. Verse 343. Humans perturbed by craving flee back and forth like a trapped hare. So a man should discard his greed and hankering. A man should discard his greed and hankering if he truly seeks liberation from craving. Verse 344. If one already out of the jungle of craving is lured right into the jungle again, so that he is liberated and free from the jungle, but then he races headlong into it again. Behold, here he is liberated, but he is racing headlong right into bondage again. Just a minute, folks.